So the Gospels are writing, so there's different authors with different intentions writing to different audiences. So some of them are clearly writing to Jewish audiences, and so they're capitalizing on certain things.
For example?
So Matthew is making this connection between Jesus being the new David and the new Moses. So he's doing certain things in his gospel where he's capitalizing on aspects of Jesus's life, so he gives a different genealogy than Luke does for Jesus's ancestry. So some people look at that and they're like, well, this is a problem. You got two genealogies of Jesus. But what we know about genealogies, particularly Jewish genealogies, is that sometimes they're not meant to be either exhaustive or gapless.
What does that mean?
So we today, if I'm doing a family tree, I'm going to make sure that everybody's listed, right? Grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather. The ancient Hebrews are more concerned with the right people being named for the right reasons. So, and they also have this idea that's called gematria, where every letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a number associated with it, and your name ends up having a number. So David ends with the number 14, if you like count up the things. Matthew's gospel starts with a genealogy that has 3 lists of 14, ending with Jesus. And the point of that, and we know that it's not like he leaves people out, because we can go back to like 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, where we have longer lists of these people. And Matthew is leaving people out, or he's like squishing whole generations into just one person.
Guys, there are actually 2 separate important points here that would be helpful for our Muslim friends to ever learn, but people in general just need to learn this. So 2 things. One, that a person in the 1st century in a completely different culture can be doing things and emphasizing things and using literary devices and so on that are unfamiliar to us. And so we think, oh, there's a problem here, when it makes perfect sense for that person and that culture to be emphasizing that sort of thing, or using that literary device and so on. So one, you can have, hey, it's a different culture, so be careful when you're saying, oh, this is a problem or that's a problem and so on. You don't understand the culture, try and figure it out. The other thing is, different writers can be writing for completely different reasons or different audiences, and therefore selecting what they're going to emphasize for those particular purposes. So someone could be writing to speak to Jews, someone could be writing to speak to Gentiles, and be emphasizing different things. I'm pointing this out because people still find it weird. They're reading all 4 Gospels as if they're all trying to do the same thing, just give a straightforward history of Jesus without doing something like emphasizing things for a particular audience or something. They're all trying to do the same thing, and they're just like us. And so that's how we're interpreting things and so on. And it's a problem.
So you could look at that and say, in our modern mindset, well, that's playing loose and fast with the data. But an ancient Jew would say, okay, well, why is this happening? You have lists of 14. That's David. And so to his audience, he's communicating, this is the new David. Okay. And he's doing things that are fulfilling the expectation of who David should be, like as the king, as the anointed one. And you have things like Moses goes up on a mountain and receives the law. Jesus goes up on a mountain and gives the law, a new law, right? And so throughout the Gospel of Matthew, you have these constant insertions that are capitalizing on details for his audience to make sure that they know this guy Jesus is this person who is the person you're waiting for. He's fulfilling the Davidic reign. He's the prophet like Moses that's predicted back in the Torah, and he's accomplishing these things.
Is this what you mean when you say the Bible is written for you but not to you?
I like that. Yeah.
Yes.
The Bible is written for you, not to you. You catch that? It's for you, but it's to particular people at particular times, like certain things that are being responding to that. So it wasn't written specifically to you. Hey, here's the issues that you're concerned with. Let's write this for you. But it's still for you. In other words, they're preserving it for you.
Yeah. Because it has a different audience, right? And so understanding the context helps you. That's why the German rationalists in the 18th and 19th centuries they did the wrong thing. They said, this is how we would write, therefore. And they didn't look back, because there's linguistic and cultural levels to it.
It's so interesting.
Right?
I didn't really I had no idea about this, but this is like if you wanted to, I don't know if anyone actually makes a point of this, but if you wanted to go down the numerical miracle route, you could do some really really good stuff with the whole gematria and the genealogy here, as he's pointing out. Funny.
So you could just translate the text directly, but it's context that's going to tell you the difference between a butt dial and a booty call. Even though
Classic line. Y'all get that? I heard that I heard that a while back. If you just look at the words butt dial and booty call, those should be synonyms. Butt dial, booty call. Those should mean the exact same thing, and yet they mean completely different things. Completely different things. Let me back that up real quick.
so you could just translate the text directly, but
Let me back that thing up. I know. I knew it as soon as I said it. I was saying, I bet AP is going to catch that.
it's context that's going to tell you the difference between a butt dial and a booty call. Even though they might be the same words in Greek or Hebrew, right?
Yes.
But you could read that and you could be completely
Wow.
misled.
A butt dial and a booty call. Completely different things. Yeah, so there's versions of that in the
It's
ancient
all
literature.
Oh yeah, totally. And this is with
and then
everything.
some guy is
right?
just guessing at that point and just making an inference.
in terms of like today.
Interpretation.
Yeah. Well, you study the ancient culture. So fortunately we have like the ability to look at things and understand idioms.
Yeah.
And people talk about stuff. And that gives you a frame
And
of
slang.
reference.
Like I'm sure they're using slang.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All the time.
Apparently, there's all these issues with like biblical translations as they're trying to translate it in like the 20th century to all these different cultures. And
Hey, again, this guy, so the Catholic guy with the hair there, he actually breaks down. Yeah, he's apparently a serious Catholic because he talks about like going around learning stuff and so on. So actually, interesting.
when they're putting in their native tongue, like there's one specific that I remember. I did this field trip to Wycliffe, and it's a
Guy took a field trip to Wycliffe, the Bible translator.
It's a Bible translator in Florida. Have you heard of it? I don't know.
Yeah.
And one of the things in like this one specific tribal culture in Africa, there's this idea of Jesus knocking on the heart. But in that culture, thieves knock. And so they're like, okay, we can't make it knocking because then they're going to think Jesus is a thief.
Yeah.
And so what they did is like they would cough or something like that. They would like clear their throat to indicate that there was someone on the other side of their hut. And so they had to translate it to Jesus coughs at the door of the heart or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And that when you're translating things, you have to be super specific to the culture that you're translating to.
So this
Guys, get that? And Wes is going to break it down. But he's pointing out that Bible translators, we're translating for a particular tribe. But it's understood in their tribe that when you hear a knock, that's that's a thief coming. A person you know doesn't do that. A person you know makes a noise with his throat. And so if you're translating that Jesus stands at the door and knocks, if they hear that and you translate it literally, they would translate that as, they would think, oh, wait, Jesus is a thief coming to steal my stuff? And so what do? Do you translate it literally or do you translate it according to the meaning? I read a different one that was for an island. And what do you do with calling Jesus the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world and talking about the Lamb who was sacrificed? One, this island had no idea of what a lamb was. They weren't familiar with that animal. They did have pigs, and they did sacrifice pigs as offerings. So what do? Do you call Jesus the pig because they're familiar with that, or do you stick with lamb and they don't know what you're talking about? So these are the kinds of issues that arise in translations. But Wes is going to break this down a bit.
is the difference between what's called a formal equivalence translation and a dynamic equivalent translation.
Yeah, this is a dynamic equivalent translation.
Yeah, so dynamic is like the thought for thought idea,
Yeah.
right? So in the Gospel of Luke, in the Greek, there's this line where Jesus says, let these words sink into your ears, right? That's exactly what Jesus says. Let these words sink into your ears. So if you have a dynamic equivalence, like the New International Version of the Bible in English, they're going to say, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Because that's what that means. But that's not what Jesus said, right? So whereas the New American Standard Bible, the NASB, is more of a formal equivalence, they're literally going to say, let these words sink into your ears, because that's the words that Jesus spoke. So it's the question of what's because people always ask me like, what's the best translation?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that. Like the best Bible is the one you're going to read. So
Yeah.
just figure out the one that you're going to read and then read it.
New International Version, baby.
What? He didn't say KJV only.
1611, only way to heaven. 1611, only way to heaven.
Is that an actual line?
I heard that from my bunkmate Kane in prison, but he was making fun of it. So I don't know if he heard it somewhere, and that was I don't know if he made that up. Because I only heard it from him, but I don't know if he just made that up to make fun of them, or if that was something he heard somewhere else. I have heard if the king ain't on it, the king ain't in it.